Council meets here at City Hall on the second and fourth Mondays of every month. Please note that council meetings, although open to the public here at City Hall, are also available and streamed live on the city's YouTube page, as well as the Community Media Center channel and website. Now begins as we do every meeting with the pledge to the flag, followed by a minute of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As a courtesy to everyone, please take a moment to silence your cell phones or any other electronic devices you have that might disturb the meeting. Thank you. Copies of tonight's agenda and the entire information packet of the council will be using are available online on the city's website. For those present in the room, hard copies of the agenda are likely to be begin with the presentations. Actually, first, you can make a statement for the record about our closed meeting of Monday, May 22nd, 2023. In accordance with the general provisions article, section 3-3062 of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and without objection, it is noted that the minutes of tonight's meeting reflect that the Common Council met in a closed meeting on Monday, May 22nd, 2023 at 8 p.m. pursuant to general provisions, article section 3-305B1 to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction. And the other personal matter that affects one or more specific individuals, and B7 to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice. Motion was made by Mr. Cavacci and seconded by Mr. Hopp to close the meeting. And proposed to close the meeting was the following staff members were in attendance: City Attorney Impulse, and City Attorney Lehan. Common Council did take action during the meeting. The closed meeting adjourned at 8:35 p.m. Thank you. We have two presentations tonight before we get into those. Just want to note, always pleased to have our county commissioner from Westminster. Thank you. Boardman. Yes, thank you. Good to see you, Commissioner. First is a mayoral proclamation for Parks and Recreation. Dr. Becker.
Mr. Gruber. Since we're not meeting, this is our only meeting in June. Or proclamation for Parks and Recreation Month, July 2023. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Westminster, Maryland, and our parks and recreation programs are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and the City of Westminster, Maryland recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Mona Becker, Mayor of the City of Westminster, in conjunction with the Common Council, do hereby proclaim July as Park and Recreation Month in the City of Westminster, Maryland. Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to? There's no picture. That's okay. Oh, okay. Would you like to say anything? Because I think we do Parks and Recreation incredibly well in the city.
Well, I want to remind everyone that we celebrate Recreation and Parks Month here at the City of Westminster. Oh, it's not fun.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Your local Parks and Recreation Department programs an activity every day during the month of July. We just finished our final draft of the schedule this morning. And so that information will be made public tomorrow. We'll open registration for activities requiring registration, and other activities simply are just an open invitation to join us for some fun during the month of July. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Becker. We'll now move on to the second item on the presentations, which is the presentation of our fiscal year 2022 audit report from our auditors, the firm of Brown, Schultz, Sheridan, and Fritz, certified public accountants and advisors. With us this evening is Ms. Wanda Lynn, who has conducted our audit, led our audit again this year, along with colleagues that she has for a couple of years now. Ms. Lynn, pleasure to have you again. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. So we're going to go over a high-level review. There we go. Yes, thank you. So in addition to the audit packet that you have, we also have provided a letter that includes all this required communication. At a high level, just outlines our responsibility as auditors, your responsibilities as far as the financial statements. As far as significant accounting policies, we'll talk this evening about the implementation of the new lease standard and the impact that had on your financial statements. The audit adjustments, uncorrected misstatements, they were included in the management representation letter that was provided to you. As far as issues with audits encountered, is just, you know, the audit takes longer to occur than than you would like to. As far as communication, significant deficiency, and other recommendations, we'll get to those at the end. We did issue an unmodified report, which is a clean opinion, the best opinion you can receive. And we have to communicate to you as far as significant risks that are identified in the audit. And so 2 are mandated by the standards, that's management override of controls and revenue recognition. The other one that we've identified for the city, just due to past experience, is unreported grants receivables. So we always make sure we're looking at that very closely. Your financial statements do include significant accounting estimates, primarily collectability of your taxes, depreciation on your capital assets, your accrued compensated absences, and certainly your net pension and total other post-employment benefit liabilities, as well as unbilled water and sewer services. As far as significant accounting disclosures that are in the financial statements, so this year, again, releases, there were 3 notes associated with those. As far as your long-term debt, just pointing out that the sewer fund increased by about $5.4 million due to the projects that you have, and the fiber fund borrowed about $300,000 operations. And the city paid down debt of about $1.8 million. Your pension and your other post-employment benefits are about $9.5 million for the liability for the pension and $3.9 for the OPEB. So certainly significant numbers. They're on your government-wide financial statements, not the fund financial statements that you see as far as on the general fund. And then commitments. At the end of the year, you had a $3.2 million commitment for the pool project that you had going on, and then $10.2 million related to the sewer projects. So as far as the leases, basically you had to record a receivable and deferred revenue for all of the long-term leases that you have entered into. And so for the general fund, that meant recognizing $550,000 on your statements that previously were not there. And that related to parking spots as well as some real estate that you lease. And then as far as the water fund, that was 3.8 million. And that relates to the cell towers that that the communication companies put equipment on your water towers. And the 2.8 million in the fiber fund relates to your agreement that you have with Ting. So.
Yes, questions?
Yes.
What's the time frame those numbers represent?
They vary in your,
It's not 1 year.
oh, no.
It's
These
a term of the
term
lease.
of the lease.
Okay, thank you.
And some of these leases have multiple renewals, and it's likely that you're going to renew them, so it went out to all those renewals.
So it includes even the renewals?
It does.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because we're certainly not making 3.8
No.
million. I want the public to understand, we don't have that kind of money coming in.
Absolutely. No, this is a very long period of time. I didn't write down the dates, but they are, the range is in those dates, if you want to look at that. Just to, tell you the objective of the audits, we audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and then you're also subject to government auditing standards since you need a single audit. And then the audit is to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. We do that through a variety of ways, testing and examining supporting documents, assessing principles utilized in management's significant estimates, and evaluating the overall financial statement. So as far as the statement of net position, this is at the government-wide level. So these are not for the governmental activities column. That wouldn't be the numbers that you typically see in your fund statements. And so the current assets in total between all of your funds were almost $69 million. And the largest portion of that is cash. And I should say also, this is just as a point in time as of June 30th. The net capital assets, you can see the 190 million, the huge investment the city makes in our community as far as infrastructure, equipment, and things of the like. The non-current assets and deferred outflows, 10 million of that total number relates to the leases. So again, it shows up in a couple different spots. And then the current liabilities in total, the 15 million, 8.5 million of that is unearned revenue. So that relates to the American Rescue funding that you received, the plan that you didn't spend as of June 30th. So you didn't pick it up as income. So it's sitting there as a liability. You'll recognize it as revenue when you spend it. And then 2.5 million of the current liability is what you would expect to pay out in debt this next year. And then the non-current liabilities and deferred inflows, that's your long-term portion of your debt, as well as the pension and the OPEB that we talked about. So the bottom line, the net position, the total 184 million, 32 million of that is unrestricted. So the bulk of it is already accounted for. 7 million being unrestricted in the governmental activities and 25 million in the business sector. This is just showing you cash balances as of June 30th over a 3-year period, and the ARP fund. So that was new this year, the influx of money that you received from the American Rescue Plan Fund. And so you can see the fluctuations there. The Capital Projects Fund was new last year in 21. And then as far as the governmental funds operating results, again, the ARP is a new column this year. And just point out that the 923, that is the only portion that you picked up as revenue this year, because that is what you spent on payroll, the pool, and some other eligible expenses. As far as taxes, going back up to that top line, the increase there primarily related to an increase in income tax and real estate tax revenue. And I'm just going to point out a couple of things. Most of the numbers are fairly comparable. the transfers to and from the other funds. So in the general fund, it's a positive number this year because this ARP number came over to the general fund to reimburse for those expenses. And then there was an outflow, which you'll see on another screen, to the fiber fund. So all in all, the other thing to say is that you did less capital outlays. So you had, and you'll see that more in a visual here soon, but in the general fund this year, you had a change in fund balance of 3.3 million positive. The capital project fund, 103,000. Public housing was positive 125,000, and then the ARP was positive 8,576. So there's the visual of that. And as far as the intergovernmental increase, it increased about 1.5 million, but again, 923,000 was the ARP funding. The housing department also had $210,000 increase, but you'll also see that on expenses when we look at the detail of that. And again, you can see a bigger slice related to taxes. We already talked about that increase. So as far as the expense breakdown, public safety had the biggest jump, and that primarily was related to payroll. And then the capital outlay was a larger decrease just because you had less projects going on in that fiscal year. The culture and recreation, I didn't point out on the other slide for the revenue, but if the jump there is really because you were back in the swing of things. Thank goodness you were able to have your strolls and your other events and Fall Fest. So it was on the revenue side and also the expense side here. As far as the proprietary funds, the sewer and water fund operating revenue, those increases were primarily related to increases in rates. And then fiber, I do want to point out, since there's kind of less activity at, let's say, in that fund, and with that lease implementation, it kind of skews the numbers a little bit as far as the growth that you would have. So really for that fund, I would compare this total revenue and this number as far as instead of the top line, because with this lease, you split it between part of it gets reported as interest, part of it gets reported as operating revenue. So the total revenue would be a better representation of there was some growth, is what I'm trying to say, in your fiber revenue. I'm going all the way down here then to capital contributions. You can see they were significantly lower. That all has to do with the ENR project and just the timing, the funding, and where you are in that project. And there's the 116,973 increase to the fiber fund. That was the transfer that came over from the general. So for the year, the sewer fund had a positive change in that position of 8.8 million. The water fund 1.7 million, and the fiber had a loss of 755,000. Just so you can see the visual of that. All right, so then at the end, we give you the findings that we come across. And so these are just definitions. The material is a significant deficiency. I'm not going to read all that to you, but I do want to point out for the financial statement piece of it, you had one finding and it was a significant deficiency. And that was related to the need for having many adjustments that were required to the financial statements after the numbers were provided. And last year that finding was a material weakness, whereas this year it's significant deficiency, which is an improvement. And then also last year you had 6 financial statement findings, whereas this year you had 1. So that was an improvement as well. And then on the federal awards side, so this year you had to have 2 programs tested as a major program. And so you had the housing department, and then you also had the coronavirus state and local funds, the 923,000 that we saw. And so there were no findings with the recovery funds. So all the findings that we'll talk about here relate to the housing. And the first one, the material weakness, that's a repeat finding where the reports that were filed, they were filed with inaccurate balances and were not corrected timely. And also the unaudited financial information submission was not submitted timely. And then for the significant deficiency, the first one is a repeat finding that administrative costs were charged to the public housing agency using allocations that were not documented and were not consistent. And the second one was a new finding, and that relates to, we test all of your tenant files, and the city did not maintain appropriate documentation to support tenant eligibility, and tenant income was misstated on the HUD family report. So the eligibility was about 13 out of 40, and the tenant income was 3 out of 40. And then other comments, these are just general comments, didn't elevate to significant deficiency or material weakness. And really the first 2 really have been communicated before, and it's about timing of reporting prepaids and payables. And the last one is just you have an account that you do the work for the Carroll County chapter of the Maryland Municipal League, and it's in the city's federal ID number, and it really would be more appropriate not to be in the city's ID number since it's not technically your money. It's not in your financial statement, so it's not cloudy. The rest of the slides, I'm not going to go through all of them. We have a big agenda, but I'm just letting you know there's a lot of new GASB's pronouncements that are still coming up. They always like to keep us all on our toes. So that's a high level review for you. Are there any questions?
Very good, thank you. Is there any questions, Ms. Lynn?
Mr. President.
Mr. Clark?
So at the very beginning, I thought you said something about one of the issues you contended with was the amount of time it took with the audit.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, ideally, we have it planned that we're going to start the audit in September. That's what we commit to, and then it doesn't happen because you're not ready. And so I think it was more so maybe December when we were able to start. And then when we try to get answers, we don't always get them. So it draws the audit out. It takes many months, and it shouldn't take that long.
Thanks.
Thanks.
What else? Right, thank you. So the finance committee will take this up then, when we have our next finance committee meeting. We'll go through this with staff, and we'll be able to, we'll probably report back to everybody on one finding as well as the other. But thank you again. We appreciate the honest reporting of the firm. There's a lot of better reporting.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, move on now to our public hearing. We have a public hearing on the Ellsworth Cemetery annexation. Public hearings in the city of Westminster are led by the mayor, so I will pass the gavel to the mayor and let her preside.
Thank you, Mr. President. This public hearing has been properly published in the Carroll County Times, meeting all of the state of Maryland departments. Public hearing, Ellsworth annexation number 76, enlarging the corporate boundaries of the city of Westminster by annexing into the city certain property containing 1.1812 acres contiguous to adjoining the city's existing corporate boundaries, consisting of land located on the north side of Lighty Road, commonly known as Ellsworth Cemetery, also identified as tax account number 07-004 788, map 46, grid 0016, parcel 1592. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding the case?
Yes, there is. Good evening, Kelly Schaefer Miller, 73 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. I'm here tonight on behalf of Ellsworth Cemetery. I know we were before you for the introduction, so some of the questions were asked at that point. I do have Diane with me from Ellsworth Cemetery and Marshall Green from CLSI, both of whom have been instrumental in this effort. And we're all here and happy to answer any questions that you have tonight. But I would briefly just like to say that this annexation request is a unique opportunity for the city. I think everybody's very excited about it, and we've had support from the city and the county. And this will really be symbolic in nature, and it will also, very importantly, start the process of then the next step for Ellsworth, which is amending the heart of the Civil War heritage area. That map amendment has to occur for them then to be eligible for additional grant funding. So this is in many ways really just the beginning of their process here, but we are very excited to continue this and hopefully amend that area here in the state. So that's going to be a new process for me, but we're gonna work through it. So like I said, if there are any questions, we are happy to answer them. This did get a favorable recommendation from the county as it went through the planning commission and board of county commissioners review, and also from the city's planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes.
I'm Diane Betcher. I am on the advisory board for Ellsworth Cemetery with the Community Foundation of Carroll County. I got involved with Ellsworth a couple of years ago. I'm a veteran myself, and I was drawn to the story of the veterans buried at Ellsworth. There are 17 veterans from the Civil War buried at Ellsworth, so very important part of our Civil War heritage in this area, and being part of that part of the Civil War heritage area is appropriate for Ellsworth. Additionally, the historic values of the county, the first African-American devotion to the county, Nick Caraway, is interred there. John M. Snowden was the first African-American to sit on a jury in Carroll County. Additionally, his sister, Mary Walker, was an educator and helped us start 2 HBCUs, one in South Carolina and one as far away to Texas. They'd actually written to Baltimore to ask her to come to Texas, and she was the initial administrator for St. Philip's College, which is still an active HBCU in Texas. So the history not only of Westminster, but of our county, of our state, of our nation is ensconced in Ellsworth, and we're excited to be part of the city of Westminster going forward into the future.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you state your address, please?
I'm sorry, I'm in Owings Mills, 3635 Elton Forest Way, Owings Mills, 21117.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard on the matter? Oh, yes.
Yeah, my name is Richard Turner. I reside at 43 Kate Wagner Court in Westminster, Maryland, but outside the city limits. I come now as an official representative of the Heart of Civil War Heritage area, but I serve on their board. I'm particularly interested in this particular annexation and what will happen with the property. And personally, I'm supportive of the efforts to try and include this also ultimately in the boundary for the Civil War heritage area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would anyone else like to be heard? No one else would like to be heard. I will close the public meeting. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move on now to the next item, approval of minutes. We have minutes of a meeting of the mayor and the common council on May 22nd, and we closed meeting the same date. We have a motion to approve the minutes from that date.
Motion to approve.
With a motion by Mr. Dale, and there's a second.
Second.
With a second by Mr. Hoff. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, and the ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. Thank you. We have, I believe, 8 items on the consent calendar. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion by Mr. Dale, to approve the consent calendar, and a second by Mr. Camacho. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it. The calendar is approved. Report from the mayor, Dr. Patrick.
Thank you, Council President. So bear with me, it's a little long today. So we haven't, it seems like we haven't met. 3-week breaks. Saturday morning, May 27th, the Westminster Community Pool opened. I stopped by right at around noon as the doors opened for the first day of the 2023 season. And I know we're probably going to talk about the pool a little bit later, so I don't want to say too much about it, but on that first day, it was really great to see folks lined up outside before the doors opened to be the first ones to jump into the pool. And so I spent some time there just welcoming members of the community back to the pool and sort of just spending a little bit of time talking to them on that very first day. Very briefly, we had a ribbon cutting for the pool on Friday, June 9th, along with the Stingrays Welcome Home event. The entire council was able to come to the event, as well as several staff members, the Keller brothers, construction, as well as some of our other local elected officials, including Commissioner Gordon. We kept our promise that the pool would be open by Memorial Day in 2023. And so I'm really excited that that happened, and I'm looking forward to seeing the progress on phase 2 this summer and have that open for the summer of 2024. On Monday, May 29th, the city took part in the traditional Memorial Day parade organized by American Legion, Carroll County Post 31. While I could not walk in the parade due to my foot ankle here, I was able to meet the council at the end of the parade for the ceremony at the Westminster Cemetery to honor those who gave their lives in service to our country. Myself and Lieutenant Reif placed the city wreaths on the memorial that morning at the ceremony. General Burkhead delivered a wonderful address, and I also just want to say thank you, Chief, if you could convey this please to Sergeant Ecker and Sergeant Hoff for providing transportation for me that morning to and from the ceremony at the cemetery. Saturday, June 3rd. It was a busy day. It was a busy day for many of us, I think, in the council that day. My morning started, this was on Saturday, the 3rd, providing the keynote address on my journey to leadership at a Maryland State Education Association MSEA leadership workshop in Lithicum. I did talk about the role in Westminster and the role that the council plays as well in that leadership talk. After that was back to Westminster to take part in the P-Flag Pride Walk along with some of the other council members. I didn't walk, I cheered again from the sidelines since I couldn't walk in the Pride Walk. After that, it was Art in the Park, which is Carroll County Arts Council's annual art event. It takes place behind City Hall. And that's always a great time. And I really hope all the artists had a really great day. It's either 90 degrees or raining on that day. And it was the former for that Saturday. I just also wanted to note that while Melanie and I were there, I remembered that at that event exactly 2 years ago, Ms. Imhoff was there incognito to scope out Westminster before officially becoming our city administrator. I can't remember if we had extended the offer to, we had not extended the offer to you at that time, but I remember you had mentioned you had come to Art in the Park that day. And so later that afternoon, I spoke at the dedication of the water tower at McDaniel College. It looks amazing. It was really helpful that the city was able to assist in painting the logo at the top of that water tower. And soon it will have lights illuminating it. Sunday, June 4th, I rolled into the Girls on the Run 5K. Again, not really walking or running, but there to be supportive. This was the second year I emceed that event. This is one of my favorite events because I'm given a microphone, a rough script, and 3 hours to basically talk to runners, parents, coaches, and other attendees at the event. If you've never been to one of the Girls on the Run 5K events, these are for elementary, middle school students. They host 5Ks. They really focus on leadership, building confidence in young girls. There are a lot of group photos taken. I got to hang out with Steve Moore of Run More in downtown Westminster. I met Grace, who also had her foot in a boot, so we posed for a picture. I also met Grace at the ribbon cutting at the pool again, so we posed for another picture in the boots. But the Girls on the Run is just an all-around really great event. And then on Thursday, June 8th, the mayors of Carroll County met at Flood Zone and Union Bridge. We often got together, or mayors would get together. when I first became mayor, we had a meeting or two. We sort of lapsed off a little bit, but we recently begun to meet again. We get together maybe about every other month. Mayor Chris Nevin of Hampstead provides a MML report, and we welcome the newly elected mayors to the group. We provided some updates about events going on in our municipalities, and we talked about the upcoming MML conference in Ocean City. The school year's over, thank goodness. I'm looking forward to spending more time, most of my time in Westminster this summer. So stop by and say hello if you see me in town, and hopefully I'll see a lot of folks on Saturday at Beer and Barbecue. All right, Mr. President, that is it.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Becker. Move on now to reports from standing committees. We begin with liaison to the Carroll County Arts Council, Mr. Dayhoff.
Oh, no report. Thank you, Mr.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Next is our Economic and Community Development Committee, Mr. Hoff.
Mr. President, the only thing I'll note is that we had a meeting today. We are working with staff on updating our water allocation policy for the upcoming years, and eventually that will be coming to common council.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. On behalf of the Finance Committee, I can report that later on the agenda this evening, you will see an item for adoption of budget amendment number 2 from the city, which amends the adopted budget for fiscal year that began on July 1st, 2022. Ends on June 30th of this year. So that's we'll get into that a little later. For the Personnel Committee, I have no report for that. Public Safety, Mr. Kavachi.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the 24th, the Carroll County Carroll County Health Department had the Opioid Prevention Coalition event where they go out and show appreciation to first responders. I know there were a number of us from the council that were there, and basically it's an opportunity where the elected official goes along with 1 or 2 folks that are in recovery, and they go to either a local police department, a fire station, or the detention center, and thank the first responders for helping folks in their recovery or in prevention of opioid overdose in most cases. And it's always pretty heartwarming seeing these people go and talk to the first responders. They usually give a couple of testimonies in terms of how the first responders saved their lives when they were in overdose, and then in some cases what they also do to help keep them from relapsing. So it's a really great event. I was fortunate enough to go to our own police department this year, which I don't do every year since they bounce us around. But of course, I spilled some of their food on the way there, so hopefully there was still enough left by the time I got it there. But it's always a really nice event. So on the 27th, the police department hosted another police officer applicant testing day where they facilitated a written test, panel interviews, and a physical ability test for police officer applicants. We still are understaffed and are looking for people to become police officers. So if anyone here knows anyone that might be interested, come on out. We're still looking to hire a few police officers. On June 5th, Chief Ledwell attended the quarterly police accountability board meeting. It's a relatively new entity where he updated the board regarding the 2023 second quarter data and other relevant matters. That's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kavachi. Public Works, Ms. Gilbert.
Yeah, it was several things. I'll start with probably if any of you have been driving down Main Street today, you've noticed a little bit of traffic congestion right across the street from Lawrence and Bollinger. There was a water leak today and traffic had to be slightly diverted to basically check for the right of way and determine whose responsibility it was, which ended up being a service leak at a local property. So hopefully that has now been resolved. There was also a water main break at 140 Shopping Center on Sunday, June 4th. Everything was fixed without much disruption there. And obviously Public Works, along with our Parks and Rec department, has been extremely busy supporting all of our events, including the Memorial Day Parade, pickle in the park, tournament, Girls on the Run event, and the pool grand opening. So they continue to be busy. Will be after their normal hours work. So, thank you to all of the department, and that's all I have for that report.
Right, very good, thank you, Ms. Gilbert, and you please give us a report on the recreational parks committee as well.
Yep, I'll keep going. I need to highlight a couple things with Parks and Rec Department. They have been extremely busy. I want to say it's probably their busiest time of year right now. Yes. Foremost, Mayor Becker talked about the ribbon cutting in the pool. It was June 9th. Second, I want to make sure everyone is aware of the beer and barbecue stroll on Saturday, June 17th. And then I want to also shout out and mention about the wonderful Aqua Fitness program that is happening in Aqua Zumba at the pool right now, Tuesday through Friday, from 11 to 11:45. That's going on until the 15th of this month, and then we resume in August. Except Rezumba. Rezumba. Yeah, Rezumba. That's very good. It would Rezumba. And you can also catch a couple classes on a Sunday. Daddy and daughter date night is June 14th from 6 to 8 at Martin's. Corbett's Charge Encampment is going to be June 29th at the City Hall. And I'm sure this is Abby's favorite one, is summer camp. It started today. And the staff have put in an amazing amount of time and thought. If anybody looks at the schedule for summer camp, they're gonna realize that the staff have put in an enormous amount of time, thought, preparation. Every week, there's a different theme. The theme corresponds to the field trip. If the theme being rolling to the 80s, there's a field trip to Magic Mountain. If the theme of the week is Lost in Space, they go to Sky Zone. Exploration, Port Discovery, I could go on, but for only $135 for city residents or $145 per camper from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It is an amazing opportunity for a lot of these kids to experience a summer that otherwise none of these kids would ever experience. So kudos to Abby and her team, because these children get an amazing summer that they would never have an opportunity to do. So, and also to the staff, because it's not just you guys, it's Public Works, it's everybody who goes to a great amount of work to make sure kids are taken care of each summer. In addition to that, the July Parks and Rec calendar is also now available. And again, theme, Aqua Zumba is resuming. I think I just messed that all up. There's Reptile Wonders going on. It'll be available tomorrow. You can also check it out online. But there's all kinds of things going on with Slide in the Park. Every day, your kids can be astonished by July wonders along with adults. I have to say, when I looked at this, I thought it was going to be fun because Aqua Zumba is on here and so is Poolside Trivia. So I almost felt like I was on vacation on a cruise ship again. Outside of that, as everyone mentioned, there was one more thing you'd think I had covered it all. But Pickle in the Park occurred. And Pickle in the Park was the first weekend in June. I don't know if all of you went down to it or even participated in it. But I believe there was over 1,000 people that came to town. Am I correct on my numbers? Okay. 1,000 people that came into town for the weekend of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to Pickle in the Park for the tournament. So that was well done, well organized. Trophies went off to everyone, or medals. And I'm anticipating participating. I think that's all. Or sorry, Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Now I want to go to camp. And finally, Technology Committee, Mr. Day.
Progress, no report.
All right, thank you very much. Move on now to council comments and discussions. The opportunity for council members to share anything that they'd like to in terms of comments or items that they want to mention that are not elsewhere on tonight's agenda. And I want to begin just unusually tonight because I just want to ask. We haven't had much rain, a little rain Today, not too much. Mr. Dick, how's the reservoir going? How are things working?
Last report I saw, the reservoir was still in good shape, along with Cranberry Branch.
Okay, so we're still doing all right.
Yeah, we're a little better than some of the surrounding areas.
And I don't want to add much to that long list of activities that the mayor talked about, except I do want to say that for the Memorial Day Parade, it was a pleasure to welcome General Janine Burkhead to Westminster. General Burkhead is the new adjutant general of the Maryland National Guard. She's an old colleague of mine, so it's a particular pleasure to be able to have her here. And I think fitting that she'd be with us on Memorial Day at commemorates some memorial. We'll move on now. Mr. Kakachi.
I have nothing, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kakachi. Mr. Dayhoff.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. This past weekend, we had 500-600 folks in town for the Maryland Delaware Lutheran Synod meeting. And everyone was very much impressed with the city of Westminster. Lots of folks went downtown and used the local restaurants and went shopping. And it all went extremely well. A shout out to the police department who gave me a timely assist on a couple of occasions with the parking chaos that ensued. And the Westminster Fire Department was a great help also. So I think that might be a thing. We might have I think the Senate's going to consider meeting here in the future again, which is great, bringing a lot of folks into town that spend money, and it was all good stuff. In addition to all of the other events in which I participated, I was very pleased with the Memorial Day Parade. It's nice to see it back up to speed. I think this was one of the largest ones ever. And we had the Vietnam Memorial ceremonies right after the parade, which are also always very moving. I think that's my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Ms. Gilbert.
I'll be kind of brief since my Parks and Rec report kind of took care of most of what would have been in my comments, but I did want to highlight the Memorial Day Parade and how wonderful that it was. I believe it was almost 2 hours long. I heard like an hour and a half, pretty close, so it was really long. But I wanted to kind of highlight, I know Councilman Dayhoff did mention about the ceremony at the Vietnam Memorial. But it is a small ceremony that most people are totally unaware of. And it is, there's probably anywhere from 12 to 15, sometimes more people that attend that ceremony. And usually the people who attend that ceremony are all family members of the folks that died in the Vietnam War. There was a lot of people several years ago that put forth a lot of effort to ensure that memorial took place, and that ceremony does mean a lot to a lot of those family members, and it is quite obvious if you ever go. Many of them appreciate the chance to talk about their experiences and or their family members. So Councilman Dayhoff, I thank you for continuing that tradition. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you for mentioning. All right, thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Mr. Hoff.
Mr. President, the only thing I'll mention, I really enjoyed the full ribbon cutting. And you know, as the newest member of council, it's just exciting to go to an event where we have worked hard between staff and council as far as trying to obtain money from different sources to really do some great things for the community. We have the clock tower renovations going on now. We have exciting things coming down the pike with Wakefield. And it's just really exciting to think about all the great things that we are really doing in the community, that more and more as time goes on, we're going to be going to more ribbon cuttings and more events and doing some really great things for the community. So I'm excited for that. And that's the only thing I'll mention tonight. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoff. Moving on now to ordinance and resolutions. First item, the adoption of ordinance 2023-04, fiscal year 23 budget amendment number 2. The ordinance of the mayor and the common council of Westminster, Maryland, amending the adopted budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and ending June 30th, 2023. which is fiscal year 23. I want to note that the ordinance you have before you has been amended to reflect the additional $47,927 for additional repairs to the clock tower that were identified post demolition. These repairs will be funded using ARPA funds. Please see the figures in bold in the amended ordinance that you have before you, and without objection, the amended ordinance that you have in the packet will be ordinance we will consider tonight. If there is no objection, it is so. Now we'll move on to we get a motion for adoption. We have a motion.
I'll move to adopt 2023-04, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Bocci. Is there a second?
I will second.
There's a second by Ms. Gilbert. Any?
Mr. President,
Yes.
just to clarify for the record, the motion was to adopt the amended ordinance as it further amended
Yes.
in the packet. Thank you, sir.
Is there motion, anything you want to add to this? Staff report?
No, sir, we do not. We read our staff memo at this last meeting and
Very good. All right.
read the new items. So we're
Any
set.
questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to a vote. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have the ayes have it, and budget amendment is adopted. Thank you. Next item is adoption of resolution 23-08, annexation number 76, adopting an annexation plan enlarging the corporate boundaries of the city of Westminster by annexing into the city certain property containing 1.1812 acres contiguous to adjoining the city's existing corporate boundaries, consisting of land located on the north side of Lively Road, commonly known as Ellsworth Cemetery, also identified as tax account number 07-004788, map 46, grid 0016, parcel 1592.
Thank you. Annexation Resolution 2306 for Annexation 76 was introduced to the Mayor and Common Council on April 10th, 2023. Pursuant to the Annotated Code of Maryland, April 11th, 2023, the annexation resolution and the annexation plan were forwarded to Carroll County and Maryland Department of Planning. On May 10th, the Maryland Department of Planning forwarded its comments to the city, and on May 16th, the Carroll County Planning Commission provided a favorable recommendation of the annexation to the Board of County Commissioners. On May 18th, 2023, the Board of County Commissioners discussed Annexation 76 and provided a comment letter to the city documenting their review and certifying the annexation as being complete and that the county can proceed with updating the county zoning maps accordingly. On May 18th, 2023, the city's Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on Annexation 76 and forwarded Annexation 76, including the Annexation Resolution 2306 and the Annexation Plan to the City of Westminster's Mayor and Common Council with a favorable recommendation. Again, as stated, the annexation petition provided by the Community Foundation of Carroll County, Inc., the petitioner meets the requirements of the Annotated Code of Maryland. The annexation is contiguous and adjoining the existing boundary of the City of Westminster. Annexation of the property will not create an isolated area or enclave of unincorporated land within the City of Westminster boundaries. And pursuant to the annotated code, on May 6th and May 16th of 2023, a notice of public hearing to be held was provided to be held by the Mayor and Common Council on June 12th, 2023, appeared in the Carroll County Times. I would like to point out this report covers the next two items, item 10B and 10C. And with that, the Department of Community Planning and Development recommends first that the Mayor and Common Council adopt Annexation Plan Resolution 2308 for Annexation number 76 Ellsworth Cemetery as provided in Attachment 1 of the Public Hearing Report. I'm sorry, in Attachment 6 of the Public Hearing Report. Following that, the Department of Planning and Development recommends that the Mayor and Common Council approve Annexation number 76 Ellsworth Cemetery and Annexation Resolution 2306 as provided in Attachment 2 of the Public Hearing Report. And that completes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Depot. So let's take these in the order that Mr. Depot has recommended. We will begin with Resolution 2308, which is annexation number 76. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
Motion to approve.
A motion by Mr. Dale, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hawk. Is there any further discussion? There is none, we'll move on to a vote. There's no more.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Depot said, that the backup material for this item is located under the public hearing item. So if you click on that, you'll be able to pull up this, which is also applicable for item C, which is on the agenda as well.
Thank you very much. So again, any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, move on to a vote. All those in favor of adoption of resolution 23-08, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. Now, we have a motion on adoption of resolution 23-06.
I'll move to adopt 2306.
There's a motion by Mr. Kavachi. Is there a second?
I'll second 23.
Second by Ms. Gilbert. All those in favor, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we want to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it. And resolution number 23-06 is adopted. And with that, I take it that the property is annexed.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
For all your hard work. And let me just add, we really appreciate that all the contributions, the time and energy from the law firm and land services and others who worked so hard on this project. Appreciate the county's cooperation, and encouragement in this effort. And the city is very pleased to welcome Ellsworth Cemetery.
Mr. President,
Let's go.
may I also like to thank Commissioner Gordon, because if that was.
Let's do that.
Totally, my hearing aid must have been off. I just totally meant, like, never mind, just awesome.
Mr. Gordon, would you like to say?
The only thing I'd like to say is I really appreciate everybody taking the time and the effort and energy to in this process. I mean, there's definitely collaboration, county, city, private entity, nonprofits. And I think it's a testament to what we can accomplish together. And I look forward to what other things may come up in the future.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, well, thank you all. Please don't feel like you have to stay, because we're really pleased you'll catch it. Move on now to the next item, which is adoption of resolution 23-09, a resolution of the mayor and common council approving an annexation agreement with Covington Properties LLC for the future annexation of real property located at 535 Old Westminster Pike, tax map 46, grid 15, parcel 17, tax ID 07-024304, consisting of plus or minus 2.426 acres. Mr. Depot.
Thank you. Mr. Clark Schaefer, who is here tonight, representing Covington Properties LLC, the owner, submitted an annexation agreement outlining a proposed annexation of 535 Old Westminster Pike. The property is currently zoned C2 commercial medium intensity district in Carroll County and is 2.426 acres and is improved with a 26,607 square foot, one-story professional office building. And the property is currently served and building by city public water and sewer. The owner proposes to establish a new professional office use and endoscopy surgery center on the property, which requires an additional water and sewer allocation and therefore annexation of the property. Due to the time frame to prepare, submit, and obtain approval of an annexation petition for the property, there's concern that the surgery center may look to locate elsewhere. In an effort to allow the surgery center to locate at the property, city administration and staff have agreed to present an annexation agreement, which is tonight, to the mayor and common council for consideration. City staff, through consultation with Mr. Clark and in agreement with the property owner, has drafted an annexation agreement, which is attachment 2 of the report, that outlines certain obligations of both the city and the owner. In general, the annexation agreement allows the owner to, 1, obtain the water necessary for the endoscopy surgery center, approximately 189 gallons of water per day. Obtain approval of building permit for the surgery center and be eligible for water and sewer for the remaining 3,300 square feet of vacant space within the existing building following annexation of the property. The annexation agreement constitutes the owner's formal written commitment that the owner shall file an annexation petition for the property within 90 days from the date of this annexation agreement, provided, however, that the city's Director of Community Planning and Development may extend the petition filing period for up to 60 days. With that, city staff recommends that the mayor and common council adopt resolution number 2304 as provided in attachment 1, authorizing the city to enter into an annexation agreement with Covington Properties LLC for the future annexation of real property located at 535 Old Westminster Pike, consisting of 2.426 plus or minus acres, and authorizing the mayor to sign the annexation agreement. And that completes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Depot. May I have a motion on adoption of resolution 23-09?
Move to adopt, Mr. President.
Then a motion by Mr. Kavachi. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hart. Any discussion or any questions from Mr. Depot?
Mr. President,
Mr. Kavachi.
I think this is an important annexation. There's Endoscopy's tough to get here in Carroll County. There aren't many places to do it. I also think it's a great opportunity for the city to bring in a good property with a good property owner. I think this is an important thing that we do quickly, and I hope it'll pass this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments? Hearing none, move on to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have the ayes have it. Well, this is a resolution of adoption.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
for coming.
Unlike my daughter, I will leave.
Refrain from making any jokes about that.
He's getting paid to go, so he's glad he's leaving. Volunteering, so.
If the Lord is on which case. Move on to introduction of ordinance number 2023-05, adult use cannabis, amending chapter 164, zoning and subdivision of land of the West Virginia Code to 1, amend Article 1 general provisions, section 164-3 definitions, and new, delete existing or amend existing cannabis definitions for consistency with the annotated code of Maryland as amended. 2, amend Article 15A, medical cannabis overlay district, to rename as cannabis overlay district, to add new, delete existing or amend existing text for consistency with the annotated code of Maryland as amended, and to amend the process and procedures to establish the cannabis overlay district use. And 3, amend the city zoning map to enlarge or reduce the existing medical cannabis overlay boundaries, and to rename as cannabis overlay district.
Thank you. The Maryland General Assembly have passed the Cannabis Reform Act, allowing for the adult use sale of cannabis to begin July 1, 2023. Governor Moore signed the Cannabis Reform Act into law on May 3rd, 2023. And a new state agency, the Maryland Cannabis Administration, will be responsible for regulating cannabis business in Maryland. On October 26, 2015, the Maryland Common Council adopted Ordinance 859 to create the Medical Cannabis Overlay District. Currently, the zoning ordinance allows facilities for growing, processing, and dispensing medical cannabis only at properties located within the Medical Cannabis Overlay District, subject to additional regulations. Currently, there are 2 medical dispensaries located within the city. The first shops that will be allowed to have the adult use recreational sale of cannabis will be these existing medical dispensaries that already have licenses. On July 1, 2023, the state will allow existing medical cannabis providers to apply for licenses to sell recreational cannabis. And I have been in contact with one of these existing medical centers, and they do plan to file for this adult use cannabis sale. At the May 18th, 2022 or 2023 ECDC meeting, City Administration and Department of Community Plan Development updated the ECDC on the Cannabis Reform Act. The department further explained the need to amend the zoning ordinance to incorporate the new adult use cannabis regulations and to ensure that the two existing medical cannabis businesses located in Westminster can convert to and begin operating as an adult use cannabis business. Furthermore, the city staff introduced an amended medical cannabis overlay district map that proposes to reduce the limits of the medical cannabis overlay district and rename the district to Cannabis Overlay District. This is in one of the attachments of the report. Again, while ensuring that the two existing medical businesses remain in the new Cannabis Overlay District, so they will not be affected. The ECDC supported bringing a draft text amendment to allow the adult use cannabis as outlined in the Cannabis Reform Act and the reduction in the medical cannabis overlay district. Essentially, the draft text proposes to delete existing medical cannabis definitions, add new cannabis definitions, rename the medical cannabis overlay zone to Cannabis Overlay Zone, add new regulations pertaining to the establishment of cannabis businesses in the Cannabis Overlay Zone, and again, reduce the limits of the existing medical cannabis overlay zone, renaming it to Cannabis Overlay Zone. Staff recommends that the proposed ordinance number 2305 as introduced for consideration to the Mayor and Common Council on June 12, 2023, be referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission for its review and recommendation to the Mayor and Common Council. And that completes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Depot. May I have a motion on introduction?
I'll make a motion of an introduction of minutes to 2023.
All right, thank you. The motion by Ms. Gilbert, is there a second?
President, I'll make a second.
Second by Mr. Hawk. Any discussion? Questions for Mr. Depot? We'll certainly have adequate time to discuss this when it comes back for adoption. We will do that then. Hearing none. Move on to a vote. All in favor of the introduction of ordinance 2023-05, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have the ayes have it, and the ordinance is introduced. And now we'll get straight to the process. Is there any unfinished business? There's no unfinished business of which the chair is. Anybody else have any? Hearing none. We will move on to new business. Is there any new business for the council? Hearing none. On. To the departmental reports. Symbols.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Dayhoff, is there a report from the fire department?
I don't have the statistics available. It's been a long meeting anyway, so it worked out well. On June 8th, we did have the rollout of the county employees in the stations at Tonytown, Pikeville, and Westminster. I believe there was one additional station. It's not coming to me right now. So we now have county employees in these stations. It seems to be working out okay so far. A lot of new faces, a lot of new rules, a lot of new protocols. But I think it'll work out in the long run. And I'm really happy about this direction. But other than that, there's I need to catch up on the statistics.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As the mayor had indicated, I'm rounding up on my second year with the community of Westminster. Though my tenure with the city, the 2-year tenure is in September. This is the time when I was introduced to the community. This is a very exciting time as well because Ellsworth Cemetery was one of the first things that I heard about when I got here. And the pool project was one of the first initiatives that we worked on when I got here. So it's very exciting to see projects from the very, very beginning. Well, I know Ellsworth this is not the beginning of Ellsworth, but of my beginning, now moving on to fruition. So I want to thank the staff for that and also the council. Thank you. Quick housekeeping item. The city offices will be closed on June 19th to celebrate the federal holiday of Juneteenth. It's been, as Councilmember Dayhoff mentioned, a very long meeting, so we will get on to some staff reports. We're going to start with Recreation and Parks Department, who is going to give us a quick update on our next festival, Beer and Barbecue.
Yes, I'd just like to invite everyone to join us this Saturday from noon to 4 on Main Street for a plethora of local breweries, barbecue purveyors, artisans and craft people. It should be a great day for the city. So I hope to see all of you downtown, and I thank you for your continued support of these great events. That will conclude my report.
Are there any questions for the Recreation Director? Hearing none, we will move on to Public Works. You may have noticed tonight in the consent calendar, there was a change order for the clock tower. I just want to take a moment to thank Deputy Director Dick for his management of the clock tower project. That is at the moment, that's our only change order. That's a very, very old clock tower. And some of the things that were included in there were inevitable. Possibly that might be our only change order. I don't want to knock on anything. There we go. Nonetheless, I want to thank Deputy Director Drake for his management of that project, and I will turn the reports over to you.
Thank you. That was the big thunder, was the clock tower. It's even though there was a change order, it was still on schedule, going smooth. The supports were pulled out today. Some of the supports were taken out, so they can start to put facade brick on to go back to the original. Still haven't got any reports on when we'll be bringing in the new faces and things like that. But as of right now, the contractor's doing really good. Been a pleasure to work with. So yeah, it just should be the only change order. Everything's been uncovered and everything's being put back together now. So there shouldn't be any more change.
Mr. Dick, have you been recording, taking pictures all day?
So our inspector goes twice a day and he takes pictures of the trips. So every day we have pictures of what's happening there.
I don't think we want to see them all, but I think it's important to like to see sort of conference, how it went. I think it's very
You want to see what the inspector's looking at, but we can absolutely get some maybe pulled back pictures that
something
might be more interesting for the larger crowd.
Definitely get something together. We did have.
once it drones.
And the only other thing I'm gonna mention real quick is, we did have our pre-construction meeting for the Wakefield Pavilion. It was a kickoff meeting, the scrivener was attendant to that as well. We have a next scheduled meeting is July 5th, where we'll actually have some input from them at that point, on the design phase of it. So that's all I have to mention, unless there's any questions.
Mr. President, is it possible we could go up and see it, or if not?
See,
Like up into the clock tower?
that's something we could arrange, yes. I mean,
Before it's finished, is that the question?
yeah.
And after it's finished?
Very much so.
You cannot. That's the council.
You would be a liability.
I don't know how I feel about that. Where do I get my snowplow truck?
Luke's on the ground. Get out of the boat. Are there any other questions for the Public Works Department? Hearing none, we will move on to the IT department. It looks like we don't usually have other IT members in the audience, but today we've got double IT. So I want to take a moment to thank Matt Holmes, who's with us today. Matt does really an enormous amount of work behind the scenes. You don't see him that often. When you do see him, it's a really bad problem that you're seeing him for. But Matt, thanks for joining us today. I also want to thank Mr. Moore. You've noticed the packet today has a bazillion pages in it. That is an unbelievable effort to put out. It shouldn't be, but it is. And Mr. Moore helped us tremendously this go around to send that out to Mayor and Council and to make sure that that is a seamless effort for you so that you can just click on the item and see what you want to see without seeing the work behind the scenes. So thank you to Mr. Moore. This packet could not have gone out without you.
Rather than the days when we used to get a printed one, with all this.
I'm glad that those days are behind us
Nothing wrong with print.
and that we have, there's nothing wrong with print.
We can say them all.
Mr. Moore, can you help us out?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yeah, so just a few things. do have a report this evening for the first time, so I have some stuff to talk about. We did go ahead and we procured new AV equipment for the rec center. The existing equipment we have over there is being severely outdated and it's becoming a major pain point for Abby's crew over there, the instructors to use. So we have it working in our office right now. We'll be scheduling time to go out and actually install that and run the wires and everything in ceiling, but it's a marked improvement for what they have now, and it's something that's going to be a lot easier. So the big one now, the server project that we have for upgrading our infrastructure is pretty much done as of today. We've got 2 more days of some cleanup and some after action things to do. But I want to thank everyone again. It's a huge lift to the budget. We don't take it for granted. I've talked to other municipalities and see the struggles they have to get any funding to do anything. This sets us up for 5 more years to make sure we're all supported hardware. We are secure. We've got stuff that's going to work and not fail on us. And it does, we get quick support. So it helps us support everyone else and do the things behind the scenes that we do every day to make magic happen and everything just works. So I appreciate that. Last thing, just as a heads up, we are going to be going into Park Mobile as an alternate to the parking meters. Still in the early phase of being set up, but it looks like maybe by August we'll look at having something in place. Nothing is currently changing as far as the current meters. You can still pay by quarter. This is adding another alternative for people who don't carry change on them, that they have a way to pay the meters and make it a little easier for everybody. And that is my report.
Are there any questions for IT director?
I actually, just as a follow-up question with the Park Mobile, I know some of the meters really don't work. So are those meters going to be removed in that instance? Or is that something to work out as the process continues?
No, the Public Works, the Streets Department who handles the broken meters, they are still replacing. We've got a large backstock of meters that we're fixing and replacing. So we intend to keep those around. I imagine we'll get to a point where there'll be enough data to say we're not collecting enough change to warrant continuing to have the meters. But if that doesn't happen, we can keep them around. We've got plenty of backstock, so that we don't have to worry about people having phones on them or wanting to use it. If you have quarters, you're used to it, keep using it. If you're aware of a meter that's not working, I think there's, Mr. Dick, is there something on the back of the meter, or how do they notify people?
Typically, I believe it comes through from the police department. They're doing their rounds as well. We'll get an occasional call in.
Okay.
When somebody does it.
Okay.
It's not working.
Well, Mayor and Council, if you see an issue, just let me know. For the public who are listening, you can call the main number for the city building, and they'll send it off to the right staff number. Thank you. Any other questions for the IT department? Hearing none, we will move on to the planning department, which is the reason that we have so many pages in the packet tonight.
I apologize for that. And I have a few items. I'm sorry, Sal. On June 6th, the Board of Zoning Appeals conditionally approved case 2301, a special exception to add an automobile car wash use to Lens Solar at 900 Baltimore Boulevard. And case 2302, a special exception to add a microbrewery and pub brewery, this is for Hair of the Dog, at 41 East Main Street. On June 7th, the Historic District Commission held a special meeting to discuss and begin preparing for the nation's 250th anniversary. Following the special meeting, the HBC at its regularly scheduled meeting approved tax credit application TC 2301 for 23 North Center Street. This is to complete interior and exterior improvements to the existing house and to add an approximate 752 square foot 2-story addition to the rear of the commercial building. And then on June 15th, the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting was canceled. However, on June 29th, the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a special public hearing for Ordinance 2023-05, the Adult Use Cannabis Tax Amendments. And the Mayor and Common Council is scheduled to hold a public hearing for this ordinance on June 12th, 2023. And that completes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions for the planning director?
I have one. Hair of the Dog, are they affiliated with the one that's down on Hanover Street, Fells Point?
Not that I'm familiar with. I think my understanding is they're located in the mountain area. I'm not quite sure where. I did do some research and I myself cannot find out where they're located. They do have a website that lists some of the products they produce, but I've been unable to locate that. And I'm sorry, this is spelled HEIR of the dog,
Okay,
so
yeah, it's hair.
versus, yeah.
So we had the bicentennial 47 years ago. So 3 more years, the 250th anniversary.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Shindig.
HDC is planning, they are planning. I can imagine that I'm about to get some budget requests in the fiscal year 25 budget from HDC, which we may be able to find some grant money for, but they are planning a big event.
Cool.
So stay tuned.
Wow. Amazing.
Any other questions for the planning director? Okay, we are going to move on to the housing department and hear about some rental licenses. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Ms. Simple. Just wanted to make sure that we keep the mayor, council, and the public advised of how we're progressing on getting the rental housing license out. This year, so far we've sent out 2 rounds of emails to people, and today we mailed out 500 hard copies to people, to the landlords. So it seems like things are moving pretty good. There may be some people that say that they didn't get it, but it would not be because of a lack of effort. I'd also like to take this opportunity to commend the staff for their work on this project and making sure that it went pretty smoothly. So that's the end of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any questions for the housing director?
But what did they do once the renewals due?
I'm sorry?
What did they do about?
When are they due? The license expire on June 30th. You have a 30-day grace period in which to renew the license without being assessed a penalty. And each month thereafter, there will be an increased penalty being assessed. That could range anywhere from $30 to up to $450.
Any other questions for the housing director? Hearing none, we will move on to the finance department. Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Impulse. Good evening. The finance department is currently planning and preparing for the fiscal year end. There are a number of administrative functions that take place to close out the year. Some of that does include looking thoroughly at some of the items that the auditors brought to our attention this evening, and that we heard about months ago, planning so that we can address those material weaknesses and deficiencies. In addition, I'm going to report out for the Human Resources Department as well. There are also a number of things going on there behind the scenes for closing out our fiscal year that are housekeeping and administrative. One of those things includes the renewal, since Human Resources has the risk management side, getting ready to finalize a lot of the applications for July 1 renewals and looking at fees and such that are coming back when they are put out to bid or shopped, if you will. And last but not least, I'll mention for the public, please go to our website at westminstermd.gov and look for the link for employment opportunities. There are a number of positions open across our departments, and you would apply directly online. And that's the end of my report.
Any questions for the finance director? No. Hearing none, we're going to wrap up with the police department. Chief Level.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our new deputy chief, Chris Price, is scheduled to start next Tuesday. So I will invite him to the next mayor and council meeting to introduce him in person, so you can get him on board. I attended a meeting last week with a member of the Cannabis Regulatory Commission and with state police, the sheriff's office, and staff from PharmaCann, which is the dispensary on Corporate Center Drive. They indicated they are applying for an adult use license, and they expect if they get it, pretty large crowds at the beginning of July 1. So we talked about some security and public safety matters and some of the specifics under the new law. And of interesting note is also in that law will be the prohibition of certain businesses who currently sell the synthetic cannabinoids that have like the Delta-8 chemical in it. Right now, it's lawful to sell from an unlicensed facility to individuals who are 21 and older. So as of July 1, they will no longer be able to sell that unless you have a license. So that'll cause some changes to some of the local businesses that currently sell that. That concludes my report. Unless you have any questions for me.
Just very quickly, so on July 1st, the existing medical cannabis facilities, is that when they are allowed to apply for the license to sell recreationally? Or may they begin selling recreationally automatically on July 1st?
I believe they'll begin selling because we were told that first weekend to expect lines and crowds.
But it's not automatic.
No, they have to apply. I think they have first bid at the license. I was told there's currently, I believe, just over 100 licensed dispensaries. I think there's around 300 available licenses in the state of Maryland.
So we can assume that the one that's interested has started to go through the process then?
If I
Mr.
could,
Depot, yeah.
I believe so, yes. They're also doing improvements interior to the space to prepare for the adult use cannabis. So there's still some building permits they need to submit and get approved for before they'll be operating. So again, that's the one I've talked to, the Corporate Center Drive business. So I think they were waiting for us to have this adopted as well. So it removes any question or gray area. But again, my understanding is they still have to do some improvements before they'll be operating adult use cannabis.
And their goal is to be open by July 1st.
My understanding, they don't have the building permit in yet. We have not approved the building permit for that use.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's cool. So Chief, on the Delta-8 stuff and whatever else, I think there's a few others. We're going to be, I guess, responsible for enforcing that. And I'm assuming we're getting ramped up to do that if they continue to sell it.
It is a criminal misdemeanor, so it would fall under our purview. And we'll probably do some educational rounds, and then if there's any violations, we would enforce it.
So that'll mean that some of the signage that comes along with that's going to need to go away as well. Good. Thanks.
Any other questions for the police department? Mr. President, that concludes the departmental reports.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Imhoff. The final item on our agenda is citizens' comments. And we invite the public to address the mayor and council on any issues pertaining to tonight's agenda or any other city issues. For citizens not attending the public meeting, we invite you to send us your comments or concerns via email at comments@westminstermd.gov. All comments received by email will be shared with the mayor and council. Commenters should include their address and phone number with their emailed comments. We'll now invite comments from anyone who is present this evening. I'll remind everyone that this is an opportunity for the public to share their thoughts and concerns with mayor and council. Our role tonight is to listen to the comments and then respond as appropriate after consultation with staff. I'll encourage everyone to keep their remarks as brief and succinct as possible, and to please give us your name and address when you address the council. Anyone would like to be heard today? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Heather Dodge. My address is 219 Uniontown Road, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to speak after a very long meeting. I trust you have all received and reviewed the letter that I submitted via email. I've been a city resident since late 2019 when my husband and 5 kids and I moved here from Kansas City, Missouri. We moved here for the opportunity that my husband had to work closely with the city of Westminster at Magic to help meet all of your economic development goals. I know that you haven't had a chance to get to know me as well as Graham, so for some quick background, my parents have been very active in Westminster for 17 years now. You may know them as the past local emu farmers at Carroll County Emu Farm. But my mother, Diane Brown, is also a master gardener who has helped design and plant gardens here as a volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club of Westminster and several parks and community gardens throughout the city. She also taught the Grow It, Eat It program, which helped new gardeners learn how to start growing some of their own food and introduced kids to a lot of new vegetables. She also, my father, David Brown, is a Marine and a Vietnam veteran, and he's active with the local Marine Corps League and has spent many years as the commandant. I myself grew up in Howard County before my parents relocated here. But I was active in 4-H and sometimes competed against Carroll County 4-Hers at the state fair before I moved to Los Angeles to work as a union actress and a vocalist. These days, I'm a professional ghostwriter and I've worked among other things for voter legislation or advocacy organizations. Once Graham and I settled onto a property large enough here in Westminster that could support our interests in backyard permaculture, we look to raise our own chickens for organic eggs to help feed our family of 7, especially in light of the nationwide egg shortages that have happened over the past few years. I was surprised to learn that there was a code against it, given the number of major metropolitan cities, as well as Maryland cities, that not only legalize backyard poultry, but actively encourage it. Westminster's code forbidding city residents from owning poultry was written in 1972. That's 51 years ago. And has not been updated since 1990, which amazingly is also 34 years ago. Why these codes are still in place for a city that is at once agrarian and progressive surprises me, especially as our understanding of personal responsibility in regards to the health of the planet has grown. And we can actually look to another US city that's both progressive and agrarian, Austin, Texas. Westminster seems to have a lot in common with Austin for this reason, but also as a technology hub, attracting cutting edge and emerging technology companies. Austin is also a city that strives to be sustainable with reclaimed water use programs, similar to what the city of Westminster is currently investing in, but it doesn't have to end there. What you might not know is that the city of Austin has followed a European model of success in reducing food waste. And how did they do it? By not only supporting backyard permaculture, but also incentivizing it. In 2017, Austin, Texas offered $75 to residents to purchase chicken coops and keep up to 3 chickens. This is part of the city's zero waste goal since chickens eat food scraps, and they are on track to reduce 90% of food waste in the landfills over the next 15 years. The program's been so successful that the city eventually updated and actually brought into their codes last year just to not only allow for more chickens, but also beehives and other small livestock, all with very clear and concise guidelines, as other cities around the world have done, many of which are right here in Maryland. There really are no downsides to updating our codes to allow for backyard permaculture. I can only guess at what some of the concerns might be. Perhaps you are worried about the impact on property value. But there are so many cities across the US that have allowed backyard chickens and bees that if decreased property value were a result, there would be plenty of data to show it, but it's just not the case. There are no data to suggest that property values are impacted by backyard permaculture and chickens specifically. If anything, there are some data to suggest that values go up as you attract more affluent residents looking for the benefits of both city living and sustainable living. Something that actually does impact the value of property are the prevalence of residential rehabilitation clinics. A cursory glance on Google Maps that I did showed 10 of them within walking distance, half a mile of my home. And I'm not saying that I'm against them at all, but they actually do impact property values negatively and are proliferating in our city. Whereas I'm asking for backyard permaculture, which not only leads to reduced waste, food security, and community building, but may actually improve property values. And if not for those interested in sustainability, then perhaps for the known therapeutic benefits that keeping chickens and bees have on those recovering from drugs, PTSD, and trauma, should the rehab programs decide to incorporate backyard permaculture as part of their program. There is a version of these circumstances where all of these perceived negatives can be turned into a positive. When we look at other Maryland cities that allow chickens, there are some very affluent areas like Tacoma Park, Rockville, and Annapolis. These are places where residents have paid premium prices for their properties and would have good reason to avoid anything that might decrease that value. And yet, they are still happily supporting this, and no sign of decreased property value in sight. Another concern is that chickens grow rats, and no one wants a rat infestation. But again, these are actually unfounded fears. Chickens are omnivores and will happily attack and eat any rodents that get too close to them. What attracts rats is unsecured food, like cat food left on the back porch, or fruit that drops to the ground from fruit trees, or dumpsters filled with food waste. Chicken keeping and beekeeping are generally these days thought of as affluent hobbies, and someone who's put thousands of dollars into a chicken coop and thinks of their hens as well-loved pets is not going to leave expensive chicken feed unsecured. And I'm also looking for proof. There isn't any, as I'm not asking the city of Westminster to stick its neck out as the first city to allow this. We have plenty of other cities to look to see what the track record is and to see if rats do become a bigger problem as chickens are allowed. The fact is that they don't. So, who are the people who want backyard chickens and bees? Well, it's typically people who already have gardens and are looking to expand their sustainability. They realize how much their gardens would benefit from bees and chickens. And let me take a minute to describe what I mean when I use the term permaculture. It's this idea of the harmonious integration of landscape and people, providing their food, energy, shelter, and other material and non-material needs in a sustainable way. Obviously, in a city yard, that's going to be done on a very small scale, but it's doable and it does make an impact. Chickens eat grubs and bugs, fruit plants in the garden and the yard at large. They fertilize the garden without the need to bring in outside fertilizer or chemicals. In fact, when you think about pets and their output, dogs and cats waste ends up as just more stuff in the landfill. But chicken waste grows gorgeous flowers and healthy vegetables. Bees then pollinate the garden and allow fruits and vegetables to develop, but because the chickens have kept down the pest population, it's less necessary to spray for bugs, including ticks, and that in turn helps to protect the bees. Chickens also eat weeds and can turn over a garden bed in 2 days flat without any need to weed laboriously. And the chickens and bees work harmoniously with the landscape for the benefit of the environment, for the benefit of humans, and for the benefit of themselves. Permaculture is a trend amongst a wealthier demographic, but meanwhile, it is a need among the poorer demographic. Things have changed since 1972 when this code was written. Perception of what affluence looks like, realization that our small choices can make big impacts. We live in a world now where chickens and bees are allowed in New York City and Los Angeles, and marijuana is becoming legal. I mean, a lot of things have changed since then. I've included in my letter that I emailed earlier suggestions to update the current code. I've already researched the laws in other Maryland cities and ensured that the code would be compatible with our current code. With all that said, I hope that our mayor and council can now understand the benefits of backyard permaculture for the reasons I outlined in my letter, the reasons I mentioned today, and the 119 Westminster residents who you serve who all signed my petition. They are among nearly 300 local and state advocates in total who signed the petition. I'm calling on the support of our Mayor Linda Becker and at least 2 council members to support this legislation so it can be brought to a vote by the council at large. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Dodge, for that thoughtful and informative presentation. Anyone else wish to be heard? All right. Well, that concludes our agenda and the meeting. And I will note that we will not be meeting at the end of the month. Mayor and council will be attending the municipal league conference at that time, and so the next meeting again in July. So with that, we are adjourned.